when we actually get into the creating the AdWords campaign, just feel free to interrupt us. I'm going to start by introducing my team. Jeff Sass is our project manager. Jeff was at Snitley Carr forever, and he came on board with us about 3 years ago. We met because we were doing some work with Snitley Carr at the time on different campaigns. Mike Friend is our national sales director. Mike was the executive director of City Impact for, was it 12 years? Is that right? About 12 years. And Mike and I have known each other for a long time. My wife and I are very active in City Impact, and that's how we got to know each other. And he's just a good guy to have on staff. And Carrie, another person I met through Jeff Sass, and Carrie is our office manager and kind of helps keep everything on track for us. And she does a great job, and she's up here keeping me on track and hopefully keeping me focused. During our Q&A portion later on, Jeff might come up here and help answer questions because he's really good at giving concise answers, whereas I give long, boring answers. So anyway, online marketing, if you're going to do it right. It's just a simple phrase. It's common sense. You know, Google is one of the world's largest companies because they're very good at taking your money in a hurry. I mean, they've got it set up so it just goes like this. And we try to help people set up their campaigns in such a way to where they minimize their risk at least as much as they can, especially in the beginning as they're getting the data that they need. Okay, just go to the next slide. But I thought I should tell you how I started doing this, because it's not like you wake up at 18 and say, I'm going to become a Google AdWords specialist. That's not exactly a boyhood dream. So I'm going to tell you how I got here. Go back one. No problem. This is my wife, Corey. I met her at UNL. I was a music major and a business minor up here. I was actually a music education major for the longest time. And I'm so old that back when they did that, you didn't get to student teach until basically the end of your time. And I found out I was a terrible teacher. I mean, I was really bad. But I met my wife as a music tutor, so I was pretty good at music. We've been married 19 and a half years. And in the process, when I discovered I was terrible at teaching, I found out I was pretty good with statistics. And that's going to come into play a little bit later on. But that's my picture of my lovely wife. Go ahead, next slide. That's my oldest daughter, Carissa. As you can see, as a dad, she's going to give me nightmares for the next several years. She's very beautiful, and she's just a great girl. Next slide. There's my youngest daughter, Kira. We're at a Husker football game. I love music and I love sports, and I love taking my girls everywhere. And as you can tell, I got 3 very beautiful girls and then very interesting looking guy. Wow, is it very bald. So anyway, go on. Okay, I mentioned I was a music major. We founded a group called Soul Support in college. And this became a very important part of my life for a long time. And we ended up doing about 1,100 concerts over about a 12-year period. We traveled 220 to 250 days a year. There's a picture of our album cover. What was funny, the reason I got that was because there's a woman who posted online. She said, no one ever listens to these anymore. And it's how fast our technology's changed. Because even 10 years ago, CDs were the main way of doing things, of listening to music. So that's our album cover, and like I said, we did about 1,100 concerts over about a 12-year period. We traveled 225 to 250 days a year. Go ahead, next slide. And as you can see, I was bald at 26. I was bald at 16, basically. I have had no hair for a long time, and all the other guys kept theirs, so good for them. But that's one of our album covers. If you ever want to look us up, we're on iTunes. It's nice. Okay, go on. But why do I mention all that? Well, the kids that we were singing to already were using the internet a lot. At that time, they were using Yahoo. Google barely existed. YouTube didn't exist. Facebook certainly didn't exist. Twitter was someone's dream. But we already had seen the power of online marketing because we had a website that we didn't even market. People would look us up online. And there was one time we came back from a tour and we had over 300 checks stuffed in our P.O. box. They had, and some sent cash, which was crazy. They sent cash they wanted to order CDs, but they didn't have any money at the concerts. They would look us up and send the cash, and we didn't even advertise our website. And so it got me thinking, I might like to get into this after we're done singing. So like I said, we performed 1,100 concerts. It was about a 10-year period, really, not 12. We were on the road 225 to 250 days a year. At the end, 3 of us had kids all in the same year. And as those of you guys who are parents know, that you're not going to be a really good parent traveling 250 days a year. And so we decided to kind of call it quits. And we stopped touring after 10 years. And I started online marketing in 2005. I started by owning my own company. It was called Prescription Drug Relief. What we did was we helped low-income people get their medications for free through various foundations. These foundations were a blizzard of paperwork, and so we had a lot of schizophrenics and bipolar people who simply could not handle doing this paperwork every month. And so they would pay us $29 or $49 a month, and we would save them on an average about $546. And my wife and I did that for, well, about 4 years, because we knew President Obama was going to run on mandatory health care. And by that time, I was already starting to do some consulting, and we knew that prescription drug programs like that were going to probably go away with mandatory health care. So we pivoted and started Tomorrow's Online Marketing. I've been doing consulting now for about 9 years. Go ahead. Unlike a lot of other companies, we really only specialize in 3 things. We outsource our websites. We have 2 people who make websites for us on staff, but we use special kinds of websites. They're specifically designed to generate leads. They're not really corporate websites per se. They're websites that are there for one purpose, and that's to generate leads. We do pay-per-click management, search engine optimization, and then we have a program for lead generation where we actually stake our own money on behalf of our clients and generate leads for them, and we only get paid as we generate qualified leads for them. We're very proud of that program because there's not very many companies in the United States that offer that kind of program, especially on the scale that we do. Okay. We have 11 employees or contract workers. All are local except one. I'm really proud of that. My wife and I, when we started this company, we wanted to make sure we kept our business local. In my industry, and I'm sure some of the younger people will know this, you can outsource this to anywhere around the world. The Philippines, Bangladesh, it doesn't matter. I mean, I've used them in the past on occasion, but we like to keep things local. I have one guy who works on contract for us out of Georgia. He does a specific kind of advertising for us. As was mentioned, we've worked with companies that range from Fortune 500 to very successful small companies and everything in between. I've done consulting for a number of very large companies. We currently do work through an advertising agency with CHI, for instance. We've done work in the past with the government, Creek Carrier, you kind of name it, we've done it. Our heart really is with the successful small companies. We do work for lots of lawyers, lots of dentists, and lots of like roofers and plumbers. I love seeing small businesses go from point A to point B or point B to point C, and that's really where our passion's at. CR Review is a magazine that has about 80,000 subscribers, and there's CIOs, COOs, CMOs, any kind of C initial you can name, plus business owners. And we were picked as the Google Service Provider of the Year. All that really means is we got a cover article, but I had to go through six interviews and submit about 6 or 7 case studies. And their case studies, what I liked about it, because you can get into any of these contests, what I liked about it is they based it on results in terms of conversions and revenue we made for our clients that was trackable. We like analytics, we love it, and for us it's really important, but what's important to most of our clients is results. And that's one of the things that's kind of shifting, as you're going to see here. Even large companies now, they're mostly concerned about sales leads. They cannot get enough of these leads, and that's what drives revenue. Okay, next slide. We also were invited to attend a Google-only summit in September of 2015. There were 193 agencies from 51 countries picked, and we were one of them. And again, it was based off of what we had done with our clients for Google that we could submit. And why do I put a picture of Batman slapping Robin, you might ask? One of the things they hammered on us, to the point where people were starting to make fun of the fact they were hammering on us so much, was that we as a society now check our phones an average of 150 times a day. They said it in every presentation. They would say it to us at lunch. They would say it to us at breakfast. And so some kid who probably was half my age took a Batman thing and said, Robin was starting to say we check our phones 150 times a day, and never finished because Batman slaps him, which I thought it was cute. All right, go on. 97% of all local goods and services and purchases now begin with an internet search. I think to people who, that's pretty obvious. I think we check our phones for everything. If you're older, you have a tendency to check Google, and if you're a little younger, you're checking Bing, especially if you have an Apple phone. We also know that if you're older and you live in a larger population, for instance, Craigslist is used a lot more than it is, say, around here for high-end kind of contracting work. It's really kind of surprising. Go on, next slide. Where are we at? Google has about 68% of all the search in the world. Of that now, 85% is mobile. So if you're setting up campaigns, whether it's with AdWords or say setting up graphics, you need to make sure your mobile campaigns are absolutely optimized to the best of their ability, whether it's with the images or the actual advertising. Bing is about 19%. A majority of that's going to be with Apple. Several months ago, Siri became the default engine for Siri became Bing, and so anyone's calling, doing these kind of searches, it's going to be mostly that. Yahoo, these stats are probably about 8 months old. I don't even know if Yahoo's at 10% anymore. Their market share just keeps dropping. All of the three are combined, but what's not counted in that is YouTube is not ranked, and yet YouTube is statistically the second largest search engine in the world. So Google owns the #1 and #2 search engines, and that's why it's so important to learn how to do AdWords and YouTube ads on Google. Okay. This stat is from April of 2014. This is from ComScore, which is a NASDAQ company in Search Engine Land and Search Engine Journal. There's 18.6 billion searches in the United States every month. That was as of April of 2014. Next slide. 62 searches for every American man, woman, and child. Of course, you would hope that you would at least keep your kids off the phone until age 9 or 10, although that doesn't seem to always work. And I used to say, well, a lot of old people are not going to be on there, but my grandmother-in-law, who's 88 years old, has a Facebook account and has like 400 friends on Facebook, and I bet you she's on there more than I am. Okay, go ahead and go. One of the reasons we choose PPC is because of these mobile phones. 86% of the screen minimum now is taken up by ads, and people will not do this as much as they used to because they've gotten more and more used to ads actually taking care of their problem, whether it's a water leak, whether it's they need a new roof, any number of things. And so one of the things that happens is that the 50% more likely to convert to immediate action or sale from PPC versus SEO. SEO is still a phenomenal thing, and we can talk about that all day long. But SEO has become more of a research-oriented. Like if you're going to help your parents get moved into an assisted living facility, you're going to research that a lot more. Whereas if you're meeting, as what happened to me last year or 2 years ago when a pipe burst and my entire garage ceiling came down from the amount of water, I didn't take the time to sit there and research it for 5 or 10 minutes. I went on my mobile phone, called Paul Davis, in about 30 seconds. I clicked on an ad for it. Okay, click. But mobile advertising in general, it comes down to what is your goal. And there's going to be some stuff I'm going to mention here over the next couple minutes we won't get into today, and because we're trying to keep things very focused. But I'll mention them anyway as we go through. One of your goals obviously is branding. Branding still plays a very important part on the internet. A lot of marketing companies, for some reason, completely overlook the fact that some clients are spending a lot of money on offline and advertising, and they're not taking advantage of that like they should. Long-term relationships, which is lead generation, which would be client building, email marketing. There are all sorts of types of marketing in which you're investing into that long-term relationship. And then, of course, this is the one we stay most focused on, which is sales and lead generation. Again, we have just found, whether it's working with very giant companies or very small, at the end of the day, most of them want leads. A hospital would be an exception. They just want their brand out there. But even though, larger companies where we've worked on hiring campaigns for, that's all they care about. Branding, this is where, if you really like social media, it's probably where you need to be. It's kind of obvious. People can build their brand with Instagram. They can build it with Facebook. They can build it with Twitter. I personally love Twitter because Twitter can be both a lead gen and a Facebook and a branding tool. PPC, if you haven't, how many of you have tried to do a Google AdWords campaign before? How many found it exhausting and painful to do it in the process? Everybody. Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you a little tip here. If you work for a marketing company and you want to really get your name out there cheap, you can do managed PPC. And what that is being able to advertise on the local, like Journal Star, KOLN. People make the mistake of, I want to be on Forbes, I want to be in these really expensive websites like The Drudge, and the clicks just get out of control, and you've spent a pile of money and not gotten that many impressions. We have a very small credit union here in town, and this is one of the cases where we won some national awards. because in 1 month they spent about $4,500 with us, and we generated $378,000 in first year fees and interest. One of the things we took advantage of, because their budget was so small and because mortgage clicks are so expensive, the only way we could get them out in front of people, and I got to take one step back, they only wanted a 10-mile radius from 33rd and A Street. Well, that's not a very big part of Lincoln. So what we did was we targeted several of the news outlets, plus people looking, we targeted like Quicken Loans, we targeted various sites that were in the Google Display Network. And what we did was the first month of their campaign, they got 1.2 million impressions, almost all on mobile phones in a 10-mile radius in Lincoln. And so what happened was, is over time, that branding converted into clicks, and then we were able to, once they started seeing some results, they expanded their budget, and then they were more willing to spend on retail mortgage leads. So managed display is phenomenal for getting your name out, and if you can set it for per click, anybody can talk to me about this afterwards. I don't want to waste your time, but I really believe in it for branding. It's unbelievable. It rivals what Facebook does because it's just right on their phones on the Google search engine all the time. SEO is great for branding. Again, SEO is not like it was 5 or 6 years ago. You can't game the system anymore. It's got to involve good optimization of the websites, good consistent content marketing. Just as a tip, SEO, you need at least 400 to 450 words on anything you're publishing, and you need to publish probably twice a month. And you need to optimize everything before you actually hit the word publish if you're in a WordPress site. Because otherwise what happens is it indexes immediately, and then you got to wait for everything to recrawl. And so that's one of the things we always tell our clients, just a good simple little tip. And SEO is more about nowadays, I have the #1 position, people view that, or #2 or #3 or #4, they view that as a position of trust. SEO, because of the way mobile phones are set up, not only for ads but with Google Places, you're going down probably 2.5 to 3 scrolls before you even see an organic link. And we make more money on SEO. We love SEO, but it's just not what's in the best interest for the client all the time. Next screen. Anybody got any questions? Am I talking too fast? I get really passionate about this stuff. I know, yeah, go ahead. No, well, it can in an indirect way. I mean, you'll see some people who try to sell PPC by saying, oh, it's going to help you. There is this thing called, first of all, by the way, if anyone tells you we've got the Google algorithm down, they're lying. I mean, you can make observations and you can see data that will help you support certain things, but as you're going to see in another slide, Google changes their algorithm 500 to 600 times a year, and they're way smarter than anyone in this room. These people are, I've met one of them, and they're so smart, it's ridiculous. But what happens is if you drive traffic there and enough traffic, and you drive traffic that stays on there longer, there's a portion called user trust. It's not a huge portion, but it is a portion. So it indirectly impacts it, but Google doesn't say, well, in theory, Google doesn't say in theory, well, Amazon spends more money than anybody, I'm going to rank them #1 in a category. Now, Amazon spends more money in SEO than probably the state of Nebraska has, GDP. So, I mean, it's, they probably are that way for a reason. But it's a good question. Does anyone else have any questions like that? Yes?
So, do you always go pay-per-click, or you ever bid on conversions? Or, I'm kind of in the place where I did a big tag manager project last summer. It was my summer project.
Oh my gosh.
So now it's do I want to go conversions only? Because that's, if I know what a conversion's worth to me, that's great. But then the pool of people is smaller.
Yeah.
People are going to buy a different product, even add it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a great question. Now, are you talking about retail, or are you talking about display?
Usually display.
Okay. Well, first of all, as you're going to see when we set this up, we actually set up everything because a lot of times I'm spending, I don't want to say my own money because we all participate, but our own money. I use the Google retail search first, and then I put it on something where the ads are rotated evenly, because it's not fair to ask a campaign, well, not ask a campaign, it's not like a live animal, but to ask an ad, are you doing good enough based on a rush to judgment? And you'll see how we do that here in a little bit. I personally, here's the thing I will also tell you, and I know that someone from Google would shoot me if I said this. Google's conversion tracking is not 100% accurate because we track every conversion by two sources. One that's from Google AdWords or Google Analytics, and one that's independent. And especially the call tracking. Their forms is 60 to 80%. We've had clients who've gotten 5 to 10 calls a day that would be considered a conversion by their rules, and in the Google conversion tracking, one showed up. It has to do with, I know, it's really strange the way it works, and I didn't believe it at first. Jeff was the one who actually pointed out, because we track everything through a third-party tracking system for their calls, and it's simply not true. And I asked someone at Google about that, and they said they know that, and it's getting better, but it isn't 100% yet. I mean, call tracking is relatively new compared to the tracking of forms. So when we get into that portion, hopefully I'll answer your question instead of talking for 5 minutes straight. Sorry about that. Long-term relationships, we talked about SEO. We talked about almost all of this, social media. One of the things, another mistake we see when we do consulting, even with seasoned marketers, is they don't set up the remarketing from the first second this AdWords campaign has started. And I'm not talking about retargeting within AdWords. I set up remarketing from the Google Analytics because that'll capture every traffic source. I can't tell you how many times we've seen this. And the AdWords remarketing is great, but it doesn't work as well as when you set up the remarketing from the, yes? Oh, yeah, that would be common sense. Okay. If someone's on their mobile phone and they're looking for, say, a good roofer in Lincoln, Nebraska, they might click on a mobile ad, but then their boss calls them saying, "What are you doing on your mobile phone? Get off your mobile phone." Well, with remarketing, what it'll do is it will, once a cookie is planted, unless they're adept at cleaning their cookies every 15 minutes, they will get an ad that appears on their phone in their browser or on their desktop. And what we do to not annoy the company or hurt their brand is we limit the number of times that ad can actually be seen per day. So we don't have unlimited. We do, depending on the niche, between 5, 10, and 15. It's a wonderful way to get people not only in the door, but starting them down the funnel. The reason I like remarketing is down the line. You can do secondary remarketing based on their location, based on all sorts of factors. So that's what remarketing is. And that goes back to another good point. Remarketing is really effective with good image ads. It's really, really effective with really good image ads. I can't draw anything, so I'm not the person to create those ads. We outsource that to other people. Next one. Sales and lead generation, you probably can figure out what we think is number one. Google and Bing PPC are awfully effective for generating leads. And what I tell our clients is, our philosophy is we help the marketing generate actual revenue for them and then move into other areas of marketing. So we start with the PPC, and as they have leads that close into sales, they will typically skim a portion of that off and fund us in other areas, or they just say, look, we just want more leads, and they'll just up their PPC budget. And a lead generation to us is a call or a contact form or an application that we can track. We set up all sorts of tracking too. As you can probably tell, I don't trust just Google's tracking. I trust our own. Okay, next one.
Wayne?
Yeah.
This is a question. When would you do PPC with Bing as opposed to Google, or both? Is it decided by the type of business or geographic location?
That's a great question. We will... Jeff, one time, he made a great statement about one of our clients, and they're a larger client, and we can't spend all their money that they've got on Google. I mean, because you'll see certain techniques we use which limits the amount of exposure that we have. But Bing, because there's so many Apple users that are so crazy loyal to those phones, we have found that even though it won't generate as much traffic, we have found that we can get conversions usually easier. Because like when my wife she is an Apple person, I'm a Droid person, I don't get it, but she will sit there and say, best, I heard her say something for my oldest daughter, Carissa, best place to get a homecoming dress in, that's a long search. She actually put that in there, and it took her right there. Well, that's a, when it pops up, that's a Bing search. So we try to use both. The great thing is if you get Google AdWords set up right, all you have to do is hit a button and it'll integrate right over to Bing. It's wonderful. Yes, ma'am.
So is there like a percentage that you would donate to like your spending on each of those?
Yeah, if we are doing what's called, see, we do like for the hospital and for lots of other clients that we have, it's managed, what we call managed PPC. They pay us a fee, a percentage to manage it, and so we would just then allocate accordingly. Most of the time, I think this will answer your question, in those kind of campaigns, we typically won't move things over to Bing right away. And the reason is because we got to have the data first, because Bing's pricing is totally different. It's night and day compared to Google. When we're doing lead gen, and the only way we make money is when we're generating leads for them, oh yeah, we'll be on there right away. But to show you the difference, we've got a gutter guy down in Georgia. He'll spend on Google, $150, $250 a week, and we'll get quite a few leads off of that. Bing, we're lucky if we hit 60. It's just a difference in traffic. I think I've said enough about that. This is an interesting stat. 78% through the U.S. I think it was the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I forgot to put the source down when I first created this presentation. Say the primary goal is to increase sales and leads. The most important thing about that is not on there. That's businesses regardless of size. That's not businesses under 5 million, businesses under 10 million. That is a wide segment of Fortune 500 companies on down, because they want leads no matter what. I mean, there's a reason that Home Advisor just bought Angie's List for $570 million. Angie had to become a very happy person this week. I mean, that was amazing. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, you can kind of see what we say is PPC. Go ahead. These are statistics that are from the end of 2013, beginning of 2014. Amazon spend is way above that. From what I have heard, because we have a rep at Google, and he's friends with the guy who manages the Amazon account or the team, and it's upwards of $400 million this year. Priceline, AT&T, Expedia, Microsoft, this is the best one. They own Bing, and yet they spend $67 million advertising on Google, which kind of tells you where they fit into things. Experian, which has all those free credit report stuff. Walmart spends $60 million. That's an interesting company. We are doing work with a third-party company that it represents Walmart's organic peanut product. I'd never heard of it. And for them spending $59 million, I believe it with the amount they want to do for a test. Sears, IAC, Apollo Education Group, I think that they own a number of those Kaplans, those kind of universities. I don't know what they actually own, but go ahead. Chrysler is the top automobile search advertiser, and considering the shape Chrysler's in, I don't know if that's necessarily a ringing endorsement at this point. Berkshire Hathaway, of course, is number 13 because they own Geico. They have that great lizard. And these are dollars invested in Google search PPC. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, we'll go over these a little bit. We do a lot of work with different companies helping them employ workers. We do a lot of hiring. It's something that we kind of backed into, and we really like it because it helps them employ workers they can't otherwise find through Monster for whatever reason. They're just not having a good success. So they use us usually in conjunction with everything else. It's not like we're the only thing they're using, but they use us in conjunction with that. Business-to-business leads. We do a lot of business-to-business lead generation. One of the primary things would be a business who needs a new commercial roof, for instance. We just had a client of ours down in Alabama who had the mayor of a town. They own like 3 of the buildings, and they ended up getting a call about possibly doing a roofing contract. So that's kind of a B2B example. And of course, business to consumer, that happens every day, all the time. And we will, as I mentioned earlier, we do PPC management where they actually just give us the money and we manage it for a portion, or they give us the fee and we take it out and we invoice them for the spend every month. I really like lead gen because I'm a big believer in having some skin in the game. There's not a lot of advertising firms that do, and I don't blame them for that because they're usually juggling like 6 or 7 different things. Well, we juggle pretty much one thing. And I believe that if someone really wants to get from point A to point B and we want to help them, we should help them. Okay, go ahead. 72% of all businesses, regardless of size, will increase online spending in 2014 and 2015. That's the lowest figure we've seen. I like being conservative with numbers. Most of the figures I've seen have been in the upper 70s to upper 80s, and it's just going to keep continuing. I always find it fascinating when people are still spending large amounts of money on billboards and have no purpose behind it. Like, I ran into someone a few weeks ago, and I don't mind if they do billboard advertising, but I just pointed out one simple thing. You understand, I know we're not supposed to be texting and driving and looking at the phone, but you understand this is what people are doing all the time, right? It's just common sense. And they didn't even put a tracking number on the billboard to see if it's generating any calls. Now, I know that that's not the only purpose of a billboard, but it would be good to know if something's happening or not. But with online spending, the reason they're spending this is that they can, for the most part, trace it, like in the conversion and remarketing targeting you're talking about. You can't always see the actual sale, but you can see the sales flow. And that's a really smart thing that you did, because a lot of people won't take the time to do those kind of tags, and you can see where are they going on my website much more effectively than if you don't do that. Okay, go ahead. Oh, I didn't draw that key, but that looks like something I would draw. That's pretty bad. Go ahead. But before I go on, is there any questions? Am I putting everyone to sleep? Okay, good. All right. PPC is, of course, the best lead into SEO. It gets results quicker. You save money on SEO management fees. I sound like I'm bagging on SEO. I'm not. We do a lot of it. But really, I've always been a believer that marketing should generate revenue to spend other money on marketing. In other words, you clip off a portion to spend on additional marketing. And I think SEO, unlike 5 or 6 years ago, has really become 1A or second in most cases. My philosophy is you're building real estate with PPC and then own real estate with SEO. And I have a cute graphic here. You can tell I did that. That's actually terrible. Google is a football field. Go ahead. We are just blades of grass. Might be the cheesiest statement. If I came up with that, that's really bad. I thought I heard it somewhere, but go ahead. Considerations. Know your goal. We get a lot of people who inquire with us and we don't end up hiring them as clients or coming into us. And the reason is because they don't have a specific enough goal. We don't work with a lot of startups anymore. And it really a lot of times doesn't have to do with money. They just don't know their goals. I don't want to set them up for failure because I've done that enough. I mean, in business, I've made every mistake you can make. And one of that was being too eager to get a client. And so if they don't know their goal, then we shouldn't work with them. Go ahead. Using the right vehicle. A lot of people probably in this room do a lot of different things in marketing, and print still has a great place. That certainly hasn't changed. Radio is phenomenal. I think radio is one of the mediums long term that's going to prosper because of the way things are. And you just need to, if it's a branding issue, then you might do PPC as a part, but you certainly would not do all of it. Go ahead. Keyword research. You can probably tell as big of a nerd as I actually am, this is the thing that probably trips my trigger the most. I absolutely love keyword research. We use several tools. I'm going to give you a couple of those tools right now. At the end of this presentation, we have a bunch of, I don't want to call it free stuff. We've set up a page that you can download some of the stuff I'm talking about. One of them is we use the Google Keyword Tool, of course. That's in there. But I use Word Tracker as well. And even though Word Tracker now doesn't get to participate in Google's API actively, they still pull from SEMrush. The reason I like it is even for someone who really doesn't do this stuff full time, it's an ease of use tool to help you get started. And so wordtracker.com, they have a free version and a pro version. I would just download one of those. It's a good way to start in conjunction with the Google Keyword Tool. And I do a whole bunch of research beyond that, but I won't bore you here with all of that stuff. Go ahead. Competitor research. We use several different tools. There's a lot of online tools. Competitive research, I will tell you, if you're going to say you're going to do competitive research, spend the money. Don't go for the free version and don't go for the cheapest online tool for $49 a month. We spend a ton of money on this. I mean, and obviously because we got to know what we're going up against. If someone says, for instance, I've got $1,500 to spend on PPC per month, and your competitor is spending, in this case, we had a case like this where they're spending over $22,000, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight. And we'll just tell them that and we'll physically show them the graphs that are created. And we know we have enough national campaigns that are on this one tool that we use. We know they're within 10% of accuracy. And we just try to be honest with people. And so if you're doing competitor research on your own, I can tell you 2 or 3. I won't give them a public endorsement, but I will tell you afterwards if you want. But they are expensive, but they're worth it if you're in a really, really big situation. Go ahead. Optimize for better results. This is just common sense. Optimize your website first before you actually set up a PPC campaign. Google, one of their big tools is called a QS score. And obviously the tighter it can read, because it'll read your page title, it'll read everything. The tighter you have the content, the tighter you have the optimization, you won't get QS scores of 10, but you will give yourself a better chance to get a higher QS score, which lowers your cost. Go ahead. Follow the mob. It says study the Google algorithm, but it's really not that fancy. If I'm setting up a campaign and I want to see what ads I could get to really perform well, I simply see what's placed in position 1 and position 2 and copy the ad as close as I can if I don't think our ads are good enough. Same thing with SEO. What are they doing? What backlinks do they have? That's another tool you can use to help you get further. You guys got any questions? Oh, I'll show. I can show you a box. I don't know if it's in there or not. It's called a QS score. You can hover over your keyword, and there's this little bubble that you can see. And you hover over, and it'll tell you what your score is. Google now starts everyone on a 6. Whether your keyword and ads are really good or really bad, it starts everyone at 6, and after so many impressions, then it adjusts the score. The reason the score is important is the higher the score on the keyword as it relates to your ad, the lower your cost will be to get to the top of Google or in the ads or get to the top 3. This is from Moz.com, which is one of the absolute authorities in this market. They change the algorithm 500 to 600 times per year. Again, I just give a gentle warning to any firm who says we've got the Google algorithm cornered. They're full of it. There's no way. Before we go into the second presentation, if there are questions you want to ask and you think of it later, this is my info. The 877 number will ring into our office. That cell phone is my personal cell phone. You can call me or text me anytime. There's our website. If you want the free stuff, we'll show how you get to it at the end. There's our Twitter. There's Facebook, is obviously Tomorrow's Online Marketing, which, by the way, is one of the world's longest URLs, and I know it, so I apologize for that. And there's my personal LinkedIn. Okay, I can answer some more questions. Why don't you get the AdWords thing set up? Yes?
So when you're picking keywords, one of the things that, again, that I've tried to look at is, so there's like keywords that are like really specific to my product, sure, gonna go for those. But then like competitive products, like I want my ad to be shown when they're looking for competitive products, but then I get a low quality score because it's not that, it's not the product they're searching for all the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You want to?
When do you graduate? What do you think?
We love the way you're thinking, by the way, because we totally do it all the time. You understand, you want to talk about that just for a second?
Yeah, what Wayne's talking about, what you just alluded to, is you want your ads found as often as you can in relevant searches. And if somebody's searching for one of your main competitors, they're in essence searching for you. They just don't know it. And so what we'll do is we'll go through, we set up ad groups, we target our competitors, whoever our client is, we'll target their competitors so that our ad is displaying when they're going in looking for their competitors.
Yeah, and we do that both at the retail search level and at the remarketing level. It depends on each client is different. The first thing we do is we back up a step and say, is your sales staff comfortable with someone calling looking for one company, and will they say, hey, would you mind if we gave you a quote? Because if they're not comfortable doing that, why waste your money and time? But for the ones that are comfortable with it, our gutter guy down in Georgia, again, is a great example. We have a dog trainer in what town is he in? San Francisco. He does $6 million a year training dogs, which is just bizarre. But he loves those things. He can't get enough of them. And so we'll create a whole campaign called Competition. Now, will we ever get a 9 or a 10? No. We'll get 5, 6, 7s, but guess what? He's getting leads, and it's making him money, and we're making money because it doesn't cost us that much more per click. And like he said, when do you graduate? These are amazing questions you're asking. That is, you don't pay attention to QS score in every last situation because, like you said, you're going to see how we set up our AdWords campaigns. We don't go for broad words ever. you'll see that we keep things pretty tight, but it's, absolutely the way it should be. I have a problem setting it up.
There's one other aspect of that that Wayne didn't mention and Jeff didn't mention, which is I've run into this a couple of times in sales. We always learn from our clients, especially in a new market. So if there's a great offline or a great game,
What's wrong?
a lot of times that competition wants that name targeted to them. Hundreds of billboards, they've been there for 100 years. They just don't do much digitally. And sometimes people are searching for them digitally and they just want that name. They want to compete with them. So that happens as well.
We actually took this and we actually created a campaign live for our clients this week that we use so to show you step by step. It's an installation company out of Minnesota. And we just got it. I was kind of worried we wouldn't be able to see it because it's in a Word doc. And we use it as a training doc for our clients, or for our employees. So this is going to be basic step by step. Please interrupt me anytime you got questions because this gets pretty, for some of you, this is going to be really basic parts of it. So,
And even before we get started, if you guys currently have an AdWords account and you're working on something, this might be a good time to bring it up on your laptop or your tablet, just so you can look at things.
yeah, because there are some things that you probably have created that will need to be undone. We're going to show you a couple things that we do. For instance, you'll see in a couple minutes here. Okay, so the first thing you do is you click on the campaign button. That's pretty obvious. Okay, next screen. We never start with search with display or never start with display. We always start with search network only. It's the best way for you to get the data initially that you need to then move on into the display network. You never mix two campaigns ever. In other words, if you want to be on Google and then the display network, you set up two completely different campaigns. Google really punishes you in spend if you don't do it this way.
The other thing too is, if it's your initial campaign, Google will by default have the one that says Search Network with Display Select, which is going to cost you money in the long term, but it's not the best way to get a campaign going initially.
No, you really, if you really want something that's going to work well, you really have to start it this way. And we're just telling you this from experience, and we've wasted hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we just through the years have just kind of developed this theory, and it works out really well for us. So there's kind of three things here. You hit search network. You want to hit all features. That way, believe it or not, even in this day and age, if you don't hit all features, yes. Oh, thank you. Oh, jeez. They said I need this for audio. As you guys can tell, I have the loudest mouth in the world and really don't need it for anything else. So now it's untucked and looks all unseemly. Oh, it just does. Okay, so you check the box, all features, and then you name your campaign. And of course, you can see it's purpose-driven restoration. They're a wonderful group of people out of Minneapolis. Okay, go down. Did we skip anything? Nope. Okay. Right here, as you can see, Google will default. Again, they're the world's greatest legal stealers of money. I mean, I say that with most respect. This will, if you put in $100 a day and you have this checked, even if you only want to spend 20 or 30, we're going to explain why you set the default as 100 in a minute, you'll spend it. And they'll put it everywhere. They'll put it on mobile apps. They'll put it on anything that is completely non-targeted and completely useless to you. So always make sure this box and this box is unchecked. You want to do display, you just don't want to do it on day one, and you want to do it on your own terms and not, say, have it, hit a 16-year-old kid's game that he's playing or my wife playing Candy Crush. I mean, either one's probably not a very good click. Okay, here down you pick, obviously you pick targeting, and we're always going to do an advanced search. Go ahead and go up. Here we click on advanced search, and go up one more screen. The great thing about this is that you can target not only by city, but you can actually, one of the things that I told you about Member Zone, what we did is we excluded a block of zip codes that were obviously outside. And the reason for that is that even if the person's mobile phone is from an area outside of that 10-mile radius. If they're in that 10-mile radius, they're going to call. So what we try to do is get everything as specific as we can. And so we will, we'll put in St. Paul, we put in downtown, and it will go at the county level. And then you can actually, if you want to exclude, let's say we wanted to exclude this block, it'll just hit a block, and you can put in the zip codes, you can put in a pin and say exclude within this 20-mile radius. You want to be as specific as Google. You don't want to just say St. Paul. You want to name as much as Google will give you, because like let's say you name a suburb. Theirs is Coon Rapids. So let's say you typed in Coon Rapids Installation Service, but all you named in the locations is St. Paul. It will be harder for you to be found. And that's all through testing that we've done over the last several years. So you want to be as specific as you can, but it's a wonderful feature that they have that will allow you to get as specific as you can. Okay, go ahead.
On this particular case, this client, they're targeting the Twin Cities. So the Twin Cities has probably a dozen cities within a city that are over 200,000 people. They have, every single one of those little markers is something that I added to that campaign, whether it be a county, whether it be a city name, a zip code. You can get down about as granular as you want. They also include like DMAs, which sometimes, they go outside of those normal boundaries. Those are included. Congressional districts. As many things as you can get to overlay that, the better chance you get that somebody's going to see your ad.
Okay. And here's another important thing. I guarantee you this has probably not been checked. Google added this several months ago. And what they'll do is this box will be the one that's recommended. So let's say that you are from China and you happen to be visiting for like 2 days or something, but you happen to be in China. So you have a Chinese cell phone. People searching for who are interested in my target location, that's a very low qualified click. That could be someone who happens to be there looking for something they accidentally click and you paid for it for absolutely no reason. So what you do is you limit it to people in my targeted location. Our guy from Minneapolis does not care if someone from Nebraska or wherever clicks, because they're never going to use his service. And yet, the ad will pop up sometimes. Or if you're from a desktop and you're like trying to research stuff in Minneapolis and this happens to pop up, well then you're going to pay for a click you don't need to pay for. So we always check people in the targeted location. It's going to save you a bunch of money over the long haul as you set these campaigns up. All right. Now this is where you're going to have more work. We always manually set the bid clicks. Never, never, never let Google have control of your money. And I make Google sound mean. It's just that if they can take the money, they're going to take it. And so it requires a little more work for you on the front end, but on the back end, it's going to help you get higher conversions and save you money. We set the default bid at 1 cent. The reason is we want them to tell us what it's going to take to get on the first page. And I don't think we included it, but there's a way in which you can actually see estimated first page bid, estimated top page bid, and estimated top position bid. Those are attributes that you can select, and it helps you get a realistic idea of what it's going to take to be at the top of the page or the top position bid. The only way you can get that is to default. We set our budget at $100 a day. We have found, and it isn't just us, Perry Marshall, who's another authority, he happens to be from Lincoln here too, and he lives in Chicago, and a couple other AdWords experts all see the same thing. There's something about that figure that tells Google you're going to spend money. In other words, we could set it at 100 for our gutter guy, and he may only get $17 in clicks that day because we have it really tightly managed. But it lets Google know you're serious. We see a lot of people who will set it at $10 a day. Well, Google, they're just not going to put you in a position compared to someone who's saying they're going to spend $100, $200 a day. It's just it's a gaming of the system, for lack of a better word, and that's usually the default bid we put in. Go ahead.
All that being said, when you start running your campaign, don't be surprised if you spend $100 in a day.
Yeah, it depends on it all goes back to the keyword research. If someone's only selling gutter guards, no matter how big the town is, there's only going to be so much search. But if they're selling gutter installation, gutter guards, and roof repairs, oh yeah, they'll spend it like crazy. We use our own tracking, and in this particular case, because we control the website, we really don't need a Google tracking number to appear on the website. So in this case, we set it as our own number. If you're doing work for a client and they want to control their website, you can have it so that if someone clicks on your ad and goes to that site through a pay-per-click, they can see a default phone number that will help you get credit for a conversion or a trackable call. It's just something that we do, but make sure you got your call extensions set up. Go ahead. Oh, and there's also location extensions, and we wanted to get as much in here as we could. But the next thing we talk about is site links. Site links is, I like the way Jeff said it. How did you say that this morning? This is just a good way to put it.
If you're not familiar with site link extension, essentially what it is it's a way to create another ad and tag it along with the ad that you've already created. So same attributes as your regular ad, 25 characters for a headline, 35 for your first description, 35 for your second. So, but you can have up to 4 of these site link extensions show with your ad. And when you get back to your office or wherever, home, do some Google searching. You'll see some ads that are absolutely enormous. They take up a great deal of real estate because they're using everything that Google has offered to them. But when you look at it, it's like, you got this much of one ad. I mean, they're taking up huge amounts of real estate. Gives them a lot better chance because if somebody's actually reading through everything, they're going to find something that resonates with them to say, oh, I should give these guys a call. I should at least look at what they're offering.
And typically the title is the only thing that's displayed, but sometimes once in a great while you'll see the title and description displaying together, which is really weird. But what we do is with a site link title, you can make it about your site, but you can also make it like a call to action, like schedule a free consult today. Ice dam removal. They do ice dam removal and insulation in the winter. I'd never heard of ice dam removal till last week because I've never been to Minnesota to live at anyway. And so you can make different types of titles, which some can be call to actions and some can just be a second type of, this is what we do kind of ad. Okay. And that's just an example. You see it's commercial insulation, and we put in the description, even though it's optional. Like I said, a lot of times it won't show up. Once in a while it does, but it just gives Google more data to read off of. Call out text. This is for you to take up another line. These are not linkable. This is where I would put my promotions in. So like for instance, they offer $500 off installation. So I would phrase something in 25 characters less that lets them know that. I would also put in a calls today. This is where you'd put in your real heavy calls to action because it's not linkable anyway, but it takes up another line of space, which is pretty amazing. And that's a fairly recent feature. Okay, go ahead. Now this is going to go back to the question you asked earlier. You guys have any questions so far? Pretty boring, I know, but it's pretty important stuff. We do something that is not recommended. We always rotate our ads evenly. This is what you were talking about. I believe that you need 90 days before you can really see conversion tracking. And so what Google will do is, because again, they want to spend your money quicker, if they see an ad that initially gets a great CTR coming out of the gate, they're just going to show that over and over and over because most people have it set optimized to clicks. So you could have a great ad, and if it didn't get like 6 clicks right away, it's just going to be shut off. Not shut off, but it's just virtually never going to be shown. So we rotate every ad evenly, and then we worry about optimizing for conversions later once we have the data in hand that we need. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
You do an ad group for every product? Like say you have 20 products, are you doing your ad groups at the product level, or are you running, like, I have this, and then I'm running a separate ad for each product?
No, we do separate ad groups.
Separate ad groups for each product.
Yeah. We'll have campaigns that will have upwards of 100 ad groups in them. I don't know how many we created for this installation, but it was what was it?
Right now they're probably sitting at about 30.
Yeah.
They're a client that's 1 week old, and so over the course of the next 90 days, they'll probably end up with another 35 or 40 ad groups, and that will all come from the information that we get when people start their searches, and we see what the actual terms that they're clicking on are.
Yeah.
Here comes another ad group.
One of-
Here comes more keywords.
It's not mentioned on here, but there's a tab called search terms. And it's a wonderful tab because you don't get to see every search, but you get to see a lot of searches that people are actually typing that this ad's getting found for and clicked on, especially clicked on. And I love it because if it's exactly what Jeff said, we'll start getting intelligence and we'll create entire ad groups off of nothing that the client told us, but that we saw started coming up like say 3 or 4 times. A lot of time it's that competitor research. Like I'm not familiar with Minnesota. I don't know who the biggest competitor is. I have an idea based on the research we do. But if we see the same company coming up over and over again, we'll just create a new ad group for it.
By the way, we ask our clients who the competitors are. The list is never what it really is. It's always about 3 or 4 times.
Oh, and there's something else here. We were in the process of really literally doing this around the table. Your final URL, we always have what's called a tracking URL, and all you need to do is go to, there's a thing you can type into Google called Google URL Builder. There's several of them, but that's the one I use. Jeff probably even uses something different. You just type that in, you can create your own unique tracking UTM, and that's really important because that will give you information in your analytics. But we were just at the very beginning doing this, so we didn't put that in there. Okay, now we get to the keywords. Okay, this is on your sheet, but if you have, say, 50 keywords altogether that you want to type in, you don't want to type that 50 times. So you use a tool called AdWords Wrapper. And what we do is we will put in the keywords into AdWords Wrapper. Go down. Okay, you did it right there. Go up. Just go up a little bit. Okay, so like for here, insulation service, and insulation services. We never use broad. We never, because it can be, broad can be anything. It can be based on semantic intent. So if someone they'd never cleaned out their cookies, but they typed insulation like 8 days earlier, they're going to go off of their intent rather than an actual keyword, which we don't like. And so we put these in here, and this is what we use to start with. Modified broad, phrase, and exact match. Well, as you can see, all those have little characters with them. It can get annoying, especially if you're setting up, 35 ad groups. So you hit a button, it sets it up for you, and you just copy and paste and put it right in there. It'll save you tons and tons and tons of time. Go ahead.
Does everybody know the differences between the types of keywords?
No.
That's why we have Jeff here. He keeps me focused. There's 4 types. Not 5, 4. There's broad, which can be anything. Broad technically doesn't even, they can now go off what's called the semantic intent of what the person who's typing in based on their history of what they've been typing in. And it just gets to be very hard to control. You can spend a lot of money in a hurry. So we don't use that. We use modified broad. And what that means is it's still fairly broad, but at least has to have those words somewhere in the phrase they're typing in. So it could be something like best insulation company for service. So if you saw insulation service, they're not right together, but they're over here in Minneapolis. Then we'll use phrase, which means they could still be a longer phrase, but it says best insulation service where the words are together. And there's exact, which is just those 2 words. This will cut down on your impressions. This will cut down on your clicks, but your CTR will come out of the gate a lot higher, and you will be a lot more set up for conversions, and it'll give you much, much, much more accurate data. Okay, go on. Did I miss anything? Okay. Now we're on to ad creation. For each of these ad groups you're talking about, the only way we can test ads is to keep our ads initially fairly small in the terms of number. You don't create 25 ads trying to cover every single thing. You want Google to make a decision as quick as it can, or better yet, it's not Google, it's the consumer as to which ad's the best. So what you do is you'll have the same title line for both ads, and all you do is you create the line A and line B, and to create a split test, you just flip them. So you'll create the first ad, enjoy warm comfort in your home, call today for your free estimate. And so then what you would do is just copy this, put it down here, so that this is down here and this is up here, and you've created a split test. It's the easiest way to see if an ad really performs or not, and it's the easiest way for you to expand an ad group fairly rapidly. Then,
Hang on a second. So virtually everything you're going to find online is going to tell you
I love it.
your headline, then you're gonna offer some sort of benefit, then call to action. And I can tell you empirically, that is not always the case. Because sometimes, and we had a client, they ran thousands of ads across the country. And we would do this, and the exact same ad in one area of the country would do great, and one state away, it was the reverse. If you had the call to action first, that's what drove traffic. So I have one of the things in my notes is numbers never lie. I don't know if anybody watches it on ESPN, but it's true. And we don't get emotional about the ads that we write or the results that we get. We just know that we want the things that are going to perform the best. And so that's why we go through this process, and virtually every ad that we write has both versions of it. And over time, the winner gets to stay, and then you're trying to beat that. So now you have a control, you're always trying to beat it. And split testing is, another one of the things that I have written down. It consumes a vast majority of my day. So.
Yeah, Jeff gets the fun of it. Administering this, we've had campaigns where we've run as many as 8,700 ads in a day, and he gets to split test all of it. He's awfully fast at what he does. And because of the fact that mobile is now the majority, next screen, you want to make sure the easiest way to split test mobile ads is to keep the same ad, and all you have to do is, check this little box, and you'll have a mobile. The other kind of ad, I do want to speak about one other ad. There's a lot of people, you want to create some, not a doubt, but some sort of uncertainty in their mind, or something that they maybe have thought about but have never really questioned. So we write a lot of what are called hinge ads. And you ask the question in the first line, and then you say, if so, call for a free estimate, or call for a quote today. So like for instance that, we would create something like, need your insulation updated today. If so, call. And those work extremely well. Those work very, very well. But for the purposes of showing a split test, you obviously don't want to split test a question. You would never do that. So that's another ad that you should really use in the beginning. Go ahead. We are close to the end. One is location extension. If we didn't create a screen for this, but if you have your Google Places listing controlled by the same Gmail account that you have the AdWords campaign set up, it's real easy to do. You just basically click a button and it'll import the stuff. If you don't, Google now offers in the shared library section a thing called manual feed, and then you can set up the location there. But it's kind of, you just have to go to the shared library, which I don't know, I can't remember which, it's a pain. It's convoluted, you just have to play around and find it, but you can set it up even if you don't control that now. That's just that's a pretty new feature. It's not that old. Do we have the Google Chrome? Can you enable that for a minute? Will it show up? There you go. Can you expand that screen? Okay. Move it over just a little bit. As you can see, we have all sorts of things up. This is just a sample of today. This is that gutter guy. Oh, sorry, no, move down to bottom. Move that over. Move this part right here and move this over because I want to show them the last three columns. Okay, go up to the best. Go up back to the top. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier. These are things where you can modify columns. You can go into something called attributes, and you can click on these three: estimate first page bid, estimate top page bid, estimate first position bid. And this is one where we get paid only if he gets a lead. So we have to be very mindful of our costs. I'm going to show you why it isn't always important to bid top if you have a well-optimized campaign. Up here, we have an exact phrase for gutter guard, which is a very, very competitive word nationally. These guys make thousands and thousands of dollars selling these things every day. It's incredible how much money he makes. You notice here, first page bid. All that means you could be on anywhere from position 1 to position 10 or 11. And so that's $2.73. Well, you notice we have our max pay per click cost at $3.60. If we go over that, we can't make the profit margins our company needs to make a good deal on this account, the proper profit margin. You notice how today he has a CTR of a 33%. He's gotten 2 out of the 6 clicks with an average position of only 5.3. And the reason we set this like we do is we've optimized it for a long time. Well, he shouldn't be doing this because you can see the top of the page bid, which is one of the top 4 slots, is 838. Top first position bid is 1150. If you optimize your campaign properly, he obviously has a QS score of like a 10. That whatever's triggering that has to be a 9 or a 10 because we're getting a 33% CTR and we're bidding about 75% under what a top position bid is. That's why this stuff is so important. That's why I get so fired up about it because this guy was a business that didn't even exist a year ago. He is a sales guy who decided to go on his own, and we have made him hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars this year while being able to control our costs in the process. Because again, we don't get paid unless he gets a lead. So that's how we do it. But those are the columns you can get anytime, and you can see data, and it helps you judge your costs initially and what are kind of realistic targets at the outset of a campaign. That kind of a thing doesn't happen day one. The campaign's been around a while. That's okay. You can minimize it. Add negative keywords. There's a column under keywords called negative keywords. We have about 132 of them. You can get them off of our website. It's a way for you to not waste a lot of clicks. It has phrases like you never want to how to install gutter guards, for instance. You want to eliminate that. We just have a set of 132 to start with. We sometimes will have eventually 600-700 negative keywords. His is another one where we have several hundred of them, and so it reduces the chance of an unwanted click. And that's on our website. You can just download it and make sure you always do that at the outset of a campaign. That way you don't waste money.
Does everybody understand what a negative keyword is?
Thank you. Gosh, I'm so...
I didn't know what it was a year and a half ago.
Yeah. You shouldn't. I mean, you should know more about singing and stuff like that, but instead I get to live in this world all the time. Negative keyword is just what it implies. This is something you don't want to be found for. With gutter guards, for instance, there's a lot of people who say how to install gutter guards. Cheapest gutter guard. Free gutter guards. I've actually seen that. And then you get inevitably with every type of client some sort of X-rated search, and it never fails, and you can't even believe what you see. So what we've done is we compile a standard list of about 132 how-to, cheapest, free jobs. And the only time we would take that out is if we're helping people hire, for jobs. And what this does is that means it will, at that level, you won't be found with that if that keyword is in the search query in any way. And that is just in the keyword section. Google's made it really simple. There's 3 columns now if you click on keywords, and the middle column is negative. So just click on that, copy and paste our list, put it in there. It'll take you to a screen, and the screen's over on the lower right. You just copy and paste and put it in there.
Having said that, there's no way to get rid of them either. I mean, we had one for a roofer in the south that he called me and said, I got a call for a Mazda Miata new roofer. You told me that or something.
Yeah, I would never have anticipated having to exclude Mazda from someone who wants a new roof. But yeah, it was a Mazda Miata new roof. Evidently, their roof caved in.
The other thing about negatives, you can put them in at the campaign level, which means that any ad group you create underneath that, they're going to apply for. Or you can put them in at the ad group level. So if you've got something that, whatever it might be, that is okay at the campaign level, but not for a specific ad group, you can do that at both levels.
Mm-hmm. I think that's about it. I love educating people on this stuff. I don't get out as often as I like to because I'm really passionate about it. And the reason is because we've never had in our hands something where we can truly help small and medium-sized businesses compete with the big boys. And it's not that I don't want to have big clients. I do. I mean, we have some. But Google and Bing is so targeted that people who are on, I like to call them relatively limited budgets, can now get the sales that they need, and it helps them grow, which then helps them hire more people, employees. I really believe in that. And if you guys ever have any questions, you can just text me or email me. I'm always happy to answer them because I just like helping people. You have any other questions? Because otherwise we can have a Q&A. I'm done. It's 1:20, which you guys got to be happy about. I'm done early. What questions you guys got?
Before we start on questions, for everybody, if you go to tomorrowsonlinemarketing.com, go all the way to the bottom, you'll see the Lincoln AMA logo. So that's where I set up the document at. Just click on that logo, document will pop up, it's PDF. It'll include the link to AdWords wrapper, the Google mobile testing
I know.
link.
I was going to say, you're typing on the wrong computer.
It'll have a list of what we use as our stock negatives, and then I also included, you gotta scroll all the way to the bottom. I included about 1,000 words that are used more to just help jog your memory, your creativeness, whatever it might be. There they are. They're all verbs. They deal with things that are visual or kinesthetic, so that if you're struggling for a word to use or you're looking for an alternative, here's a reference for it.
Oh, and I'll finish on this. I didn't talk about this. We just ran into this yesterday. Mobile website tester is an amazing tool because this really can help you decide, because you're going to have, I'm sure you have people probably pitching you constantly on whether you need a new website built or not. One of the key factors, since most of it's mobile, most of the search is mobile, is your mobile website optimized? As of the last time I saw the stat, 44% of the Fortune 500 companies still don't have a mobile optimized website, let alone most of the people out there. I'm sure that number has changed some because people really understand it. But this is a tool we just included just because, you know, if someone says, well, I think my site is mobile optimized, well, they can click on a third-party thing and maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. We can usually tell by looking at it, just sight unseen. But mobile optimized does not always mean display in the phone. There are some sites that will not have perfect display, but they are mobile optimized as far as Google's concerned. So it's just the tool takes seconds. You just type in the URL and away you go. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
We're kicking off a new mobile optimized website. It's going to be fabulous and SEO optimized and everything in like the first quarter, but not in January. Should we wait to do our AdWords campaigns? Because we've never done anything.
What type of business?
Real estate.
This is just our opinion. You got to think about how the user is. I know that my family certainly shuts down after December 15th, no matter how noble you thought, oh, I'm going to deliver the greatest campaign in the world. You're mostly wasting money between December 15th and January 5th. So if I was going to do like a formal kickoff, I would wait till the first quarter. Doesn't mean that we don't generate sales and leads, because people need new roofs and stuff every day. If a big snowstorm hits, they got to have ice dam removal. But if like a formal kickoff, like what you're talking about, I would wait till the first quarter.
Should we wait until we launch the new site, or?
No, I wouldn't, and there's a reason. I would not wait to launch the website, because you need to give, from the SEO side, you can try to game this ping or whatever the old tricks were with SEO. But to crawl the site properly, it's going to take 21 to 35 days to get everything indexed. Because the first thing you need to do, if you haven't done this, hook it up to Google Webmasters tool. Is your site in WordPress?
No.
Oh, okay. There's a tool that's really slick, but you don't need it. You need to be able to submit your site map to Google Webmaster Tools. And people tell you, well, you just ping your site. Yeah. That's a good way to get it dropped for about 6 months. Don't ping your site. Let it crawl naturally. Don't publish your site until everything's optimized. And I'll tell you, it's just a good simple rule of thumb.
And then you were asking whether you should set up your campaign before you launch your site.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah, that's totally different. You can get everything set up and ready to go, because all you have to do is pause your campaign. So you can go through and get all your keywords, create all your ads.
Yeah, and
Have everything ready to go.
yeah, and as you can tell, if you do it right, like that Minnesota campaign, even though it's just basically two relatively small retail products, it took us 2 days to set up, and it'll take Jeff an additional 2 or 3. I mean, I help him where I can, but
Talked to them today, by the way, they said they love the site.
yeah. Oh, good. Jeff's a great site builder too. He's done hundreds of websites. Yes.
Do you have, I don't know, a math figure or something, when people are determining how much to spend on AdWords, like how much money to spend on marketing, or what do you do to?
What we do is everything starts with the keyword research. We never give an estimate up front, because we don't. Every owner thinks their stuff searched 1,000 times a month, and if the research comes back and there's dashes, which we've seen in WordTracker and in a Google keyword tool, we sit there and say, People just aren't typing this in there. You might want to spend some, but then we make our recommendation. Our recommendation to our clients on a managed PPC campaign is if they're not willing to spend $2,500 a month, they probably shouldn't. But it doesn't mean, to bring us in. It doesn't mean they can't spend $500 on managed PPC or try it on their own. It's just that's a good benchmark if you want leads to generate. Yes?
What does the term "ping your site"? I'm sorry.
No, that's great. I do this all the time. I drive my wife crazy because I act like she knows what I'm talking about and she doesn't care. Well, she does care, but not that much. Ping your site is this. There's sites like pingler.com. And in the old days when you could do SEO and game the system, like one time I got a health and fitness report above ABC and CNN and it stuck there for 3 years. And one of the things you would do is you would ping it and would index instantly. Well, Google's recognized that a lot of SEO people were pinging junk, like multi-level marketing. I'm sorry if anyone's a multi-level marketer, it's not taking a swipe at it, but they don't even index those sites anymore. So instead of pinging it, like you would take the URL, stick it in there, click a button, and it would ping it to all these different Yahoo search engine, Bing search engine, everything. You let it crawl naturally. You just don't do that trick anymore. So Ping lets all the search engines know in like a millisecond that this page is now launched live. Google will index it quick enough anyway. They just don't like people doing it that way.
In addition to that, what do you mean by crawl naturally?
What I mean is, great question. Just letting Google find it on its own. They crawl constantly, but because there's so much content being published every day, just because you publish it on a Wednesday doesn't mean Google will actually index it on Thursday. The initial indexing of like the home page and stuff usually takes anywhere from 48 hours to a week, but indexing all the pages might take 3 to 4 weeks to index. Thanks for asking that. Yes, ma'am.
So you said always you start out with the search network. At what point would you set up a separate campaign for the display network?
Once I have sufficient conversion data in the ads that we have ads that are set up right, we know that the ads that convert the highest on the search network will typically convert on the display network. It's all on how fast you get the data. We typically wait 30 to 90 days. We don't wait forever. And if your sole purpose is branding and all you're using is image ads, you can fire those up right away and just set a really low cost per click and set a really low budget. On display PPC, if you say you're going to spend $10 a day, it'll spend it. They know it's a different mindset. Yes, ma'am.
It sounds like most of your experience is more business to consumer. Can you tell me a little bit more about a business to business strategy and what might be done differently?
Well, business to business strategy, ironically enough, with Google PPC is a lot of the same because if someone's typing in, say, commercial roof installation, that means all we're doing is we're guiding one business and meeting them with another. Where the difference would be is in the hiring of jobs. We help people a lot of times connect, perhaps people who are with one employer that are going to another. The guiding at our levels, a lot of it's the same because it then comes down to keyword research. Like for instance, I just got a call last night from a guy who was down at a conference in Dallas, and he's looking to buy dental practices. He wants to buy them. He's a broker across the country. And so what I did was I did some quick keyword research on my phone and found that the phrase buy dental practices is 880 searches a month in the United States. Evidently, it's a lot bigger. I would never have guessed that. So it all comes down to the keyword research for us. And fortunately for us, it's not a lot of different path like it is with some other types of marketing.
And does the mobile aspect play into it? Because I know like when I do research for work stuff, I'm doing it at work on my desktop and not on my phone.
Research is a little bit more balanced in terms of desktop. Like I said at the beginning, if you're searching for a rest home for your parents to get put into, you're not gonna just sit there and see 2 or 3 pretty graphics. You're gonna want to read and read and read. So you're correct in your assumption. It doesn't mean that mobile doesn't happen, especially with younger people, but research is a little different.
Wayne, remember that research project we did for the local consultant? They were going to do, it was a B2B for Paul, remember that one? And just,
Which one was that? Sorry, it's jogging my memory.
and remember they were like up against Deloitte and Touche and McKinsey. And
Oh, yeah.
he was going to spend $5,000 a month.
Yeah, see, we like to research first because this guy was there. We're going to spend $5,000 and $10,000 a month. We want to go up against Deloitte and Touche, which I'm like, even at $5,000 and $10,000, they're spending millions. But what we did was he wanted to target specifically Kansas City and Dallas, And we basically saved him a bunch of money because we just said the search simply is not there in Kansas City. You're just going to waste money. You can run all the managed PPC in the world, it's just not going to work. So again, it's a function. That's a great analogy. So what we did in that case was we gave them the advice to, I target Dallas, but just be ready to target because the clicks are expensive, you know. So that's kind of how we do it. Everything comes back to the research.
But often the B2B clicks are more expensive for that very reason.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you got more money at stake. I mean, you're buying a dental practice. This guy averages spending about $2.5 million to buy a practice. So.
And the other thing that you'll see in general is with B2B, there's just not as much search. It's not like you're dealing with, 200 million consumers. You're maybe dealing with 10 or 15,000 businesses. So overall search.
Yeah, we've run into situations where marketing firms, especially out of state. The good thing about dealing with people in Nebraska, we all seem to have a high level of integrity. I mean, we'll tell people, we'll shoot it straight to them. We've run into firms where they'll actually tell people, well, we'll make it rain on the B2B leads, and it's just simply not true. That's just false. You're going to have to, if you do it right, you're not going to turn an ad campaign on Tuesday and get something Wednesday. It might be a week, and you might have to go through 4 or 5 leads before they're qualified. Yes?
Generally speaking, do your clients see mobile ads convert, not converting mean they clicked on it and went to the website,
But actually-
converting mean it
Yeah.
drove business for the company. Do they see mobile converting as well as, say, desktop?
Yes, we see it.
You do?
What we're surprised, and it all comes down to demographics. Anywhere from 40 and below, they've grown up with Google. They've grown up with things that have solved problems for them. It's just really as simple as that. So we make sure and tailor our campaigns around that. But we always run mobile because I'm really surprised at how many people will actually call on a Google ad that's in their 50s and 60s. And I'm only a few years away from my 50s, so I say that kind of biting my tongue. But as a general rule, we see mobile converting better. And I think more than anything else, it goes back to that stat that Google pounded into us. They're on the phone 150 times a day. My wife lives on her Apple. I haven't, except for work, because she does one thing for us. I can't remember the last time she had a laptop. It's all iPad or phone, you know.
I have a follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you suggest if you have an application that is then not mobile friendly, so if we advertised on mobile but really needed to push somebody to a desktop, is there a way to get them to transition that way?
Yeah, I mean, so let me make sure I understand this right. So you're wanting someone who's on a phone to transition to a desktop.
Right, because our is mobile optimized. You can look at it on your phone very simply, but when you actually go to apply for the product, the application part of the site is not something people would do on a mobile device. So it's something that people would want to do just because it's easier.
Oh.
So I'm just curious if mobile would even be something that
One of the simple, I mean, this is something we would discuss afterwards, so, don't quote me on this. And one of the simplest things to me would be to have something that would, to apply for whatever product you have, I would have something that the conversion would be simply emailing them a link. That's the simplest way I can think of. And in that, when you're emailing, to apply for this desktop application, you guys can come up with phrases way better than I am. I'm not the best with words, although I talk enough. I would then email them the link. That's just flying off the cuff. If I had a little bit of time, because I've had to think of this stuff some, I mean, we're having to right now with that third-party peanut company through Walmart, we're going to be driving them not to a website, but to basically something that downloads an online coupon or an online, or something that they can print. And it's one of the weirder things I've ever run into. And that took us 2 days to come up with, because they didn't really give us much of anything. And even then, I don't know, we'll see how it works. I mean, I'm confident in it, but I'm not necessarily coming in the company we're working with.
you're going to be late. So
Oh, I've got a few more minutes. I just need, I'm okay. I mean, my wife's subbing, so I get to pick up one of our daughters, which I always love to do, but I got to make sure I'm down at the school by 2:45, so I got a few more minutes. I love doing this stuff.
Well, you didn't talk much about Facebook. Is there anything that you have to say about Facebook?
What we have found, I mean, I think the proof is in the pudding. What we have found, as you guys are probably aware of, Facebook generates a lot of revenue, but next to Google, it's like a drop in the bucket. And the reason is because business advertisers, except for certain niches, and certain demographics more specifically, just simply cannot make it work. Their search engine still is not where it needs to be. Like if I type in, this has been 2 years ago, so I'm sure it's better, but I typed in lawyers in Lincoln NE because I was doing just some primarily research. I can throw a stick down O Street and find 20 lawyers. It came up with 6 in all of Lincoln. The demographics where it does work, and the ones that will do work with, is when the decision maker is a woman between 25 and 54. Because they're picking out the photographers, they're picking out the caterers for a wedding, they're picking out, generally speaking, I mean, that's just a general. I know I don't mean that to come across as sexist, it's just what the statistics show. Like Jeff said, numbers never lie.
Its conversion and tracking ability too is not where it should be.
Not right now. It is in certain niches, but what happens is, we've set up website click campaigns. Well, it's kind of deceiving because it's not really website clicks, it's just clicks to whether it's their photo, whether it's clicked to anything. So we ran for that gutter guy. We ran one day, got 36 clicks. I was excited as I could be. Only 2 went to the website. The other 34 brought them to different pages on their Facebook page, which I did not like as a marketer at all. Now, fortunately, Facebook clicks are dirt cheap, so it didn't cost a lot of money. Doesn't mean, look, Facebook's going to get it together. It's just a matter of time. Same thing with Instagram. They've spent $1 billion. They're going to find a way to make it work. They just haven't been able to yet. But on a social media level, it's fantastic.
Great when you have your own herd.
Well, and if your marketing purpose is different, it's fantastic. I sound like I'm bagging on Facebook. I'm not at all. It's just a different purpose right now. And I use the word bagging. That's always fantastic in a public presentation. Anything else? Okay. I guess I got us out here a little early. You can go to our site. You have, can you bring up the end of our information? You guys can reach out to me on my cell phone day or night. I am one of those people who's connected. If I'm doing something with my family, obviously I won't respond right away, but I text it. I do this all day and all night. So my cell phone text number, personal one's 402-310-4362. Just text me anytime you got questions. And by the way, if you guys ever find anything that you think would be helpful to us, I'll take you to lunch. You can tell me about it. I'd love to hear it because this you can never learn enough about it.